What if everything you've learned about hard work is a beautifully packaged lie? This statement may sound absurd, but it forces us to reconsider what we truly understand about success and power. In this context, the work of Niccolò Machiavelli emerges as an unquestionable authority. He challenges us to look at the dynamics of power and the truth of human action. What lies behind incessant effort? What could be its true consequence? Today, I'm going to show you how what we consider an unshakable value might actually be the root of our impotence. For Machiavelli, success does not arise solely from the strength of hard work, but from how we manipulate perception, the ability to strategically position ourselves in the social game. Dedicated workers can paradoxically find themselves in a position of vulnerability, while those who understand the intricacies of power seize control without such intense physical effort. The message that resonates in the actions of many is a thankless belief. The harder you work, the more success you will have. But what if this ethos of hard work is in fact a trap? It can lead us to act without reflection, to accept the scarcity of power out of sheer insistence on a norm that may not be effective. The result? Anxiety, stress, and ultimately, a sense of losing control. What Machiavelli teaches us is subtle yet disturbing. He reminds us that the essence of power is in controlling one's own image and in the perception of others. Focusing on hard work can make us forget that true influence does not necessarily come from the hours dedicated, but from the strategy employed. Imagine a common scenario. You constantly put in effort at work, giving your all to each project, yet you still go unrecognized. Meanwhile, a colleague who seems to work less hard is receiving promotions and attention. What's happening here? The answer is simple, yet bitter. They may be utilizing what I call Machiavellian silence, a reserve of energy that reinforces their presence through impact rather than effort. This evidence is a call for proactive reflection. So instead of losing yourself in hours of work, question: how can you maximize your impact without sacrificing your peace of mind? How can you operate outside the traditional logic of excessive effort to foster more significant influence? The answers may be surprising and transformative. What all of this leads us to consider is, how can we then change our approach in the pursuit of power and success? What if there's a way for you to step away from the exhausting cycle of effort? Stay tuned, as in just a few moments, a new perspective will be explored. Therefore, before we continue, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, but only if you truly enjoy what I'm doing here. I'm preparing a series of videos specifically to guide you on your journey of self-discovery and personal growth. With that done, let's move on. It's fascinating to realize how the idea that effort is the key to success can trap us in an endless cycle of dissatisfaction and powerlessness. When we discuss Machiavelli, we're confronted with a perspective that dismantles this belief. Real success in the game of power often isn't tied to hard work, but to the skill of manipulating the surroundings. This view transforms our understanding of politics and social relations. Controlling perceptions, rather than just the force of labor, shapes true power. Connecting this to Machiavelli's thought, it's clear that politics is not grounded in ethics or morality, but rather in cunning and strategic maneuvering. His classic work, The Prince, reveals that the most effective leaders are not necessarily those who sacrifice themselves for their ambitions, but those who know how to control the narrative around them. What many interpret as a praise of hard work may in fact be a glorification of obedience to the norm, which only serves to reinforce the positions of those already in control. This point is painful, yet important. How many times have you poured yourself into your work or a relationship only to see those who seem to put in less effort reaping the rewards? This feeling of injustice that many experience can be a direct reflection of how the dynamics of power are manipulated. For Machiavelli, social control is a game where those with the best strategy, not necessarily the hardest workers, rise to the top. Reflecting on this, we might question, is our rigid commitment to hard work actually distancing us from true power? It may well be that our relentless pursuit of recognition through exhausting effort blinds us to other ways of influencing and exercising control. What many call effort can, in fact, be a trap that prolongs our struggle for acknowledgement that doesn't always come. So, how can we distance ourselves from this compulsion for hard work that sometimes leads to exhaustion? The key might lie in adopting a less effort-centered approach and focusing more on strategy. How can you amplify your impact without sacrificing your mental health? This brings us to a crucial question. How can we redefine our relationship with power, transforming effort into a more intelligently directed energy rather than just more of it? These reflections are essential. As we move forward in this discussion, they lead us to consider the deeper implications of how we perceive effort and power in today's society. So what details truly matter when it comes to maximizing our influence? That is the question that will guide us forward. Imagine an office illuminated by fluorescent lights, where an exhausted worker loses himself among piles of papers. Despite dedicating tireless hours to his job, he slowly realizes that gratitude and acknowledgement are absent. This constant pressure turns his efforts into an invisible burden, while the struggle for approval blinds him to the traps of the system. This scenario is not just a portrait of frustration, but a perfect illustration of what Niccolò Machiavelli teaches us about power and control. For Machiavelli, the battle for success isn't merely about hard work. It's about manipulating others' perceptions and mastering social dynamics. This idea prompts us to reflect. Does hard work really guarantee recognition? In many cases, it does not. Those who give their all often find themselves in vulnerable positions compared to colleagues who seem to apply a less draining strategy yet still thrive. This is where what we call Machiavellian silence comes into play, a skill of remaining present and impactful without visible physical strain, challenging the common logic that effort equals reward. So how does this connect to the emotional pain many feel from working hard without receiving the acknowledgement they deserve? The answer goes beyond mere effort. When we dedicate ourselves intensely, we often overlook the emotional cost we pay for it. The result? Stress, anxiety, and an increasing sense of losing control over time. Effort without the right strategy can push us into a vicious cycle of dissatisfaction. Yet, it is possible to turn this situation around. Instead of getting lost in long hours of work, you can focus on how you are perceived. This involves re-evaluating your interactions, the way you present your work, and more importantly, understanding that true influence does not lie solely in the time invested, but in how you control the perceptions around you. Imagine the difference if you began to act strategically, prioritizing your energy instead of merely depleting it. When you invest more in perception than in action, you begin to see real changes around you. The way people perceive your value begins to shift, and this can be a game changer in both your career and personal life. However, how can you implement this in practice? How can you break the cycle of excessive effort and pain? These questions lead us to reflect on what power truly is. In reality, it can be a game of perception. Now imagine a new approach where you control the narrative of your life and work, instead of merely being a player. As we contemplate this, we can't help but ask, how can you operate outside the conventional to cultivate true influence? So, let's dive deeper into this question. To what extent has your dedication truly reflected what you want to achieve? How can you transform work into a tool of power rather than a burden? This reflection prepares us for the next steps in seeking a new way to approach your career and life. Picture yourself surrounded by colleagues, all immersed in their tasks. The intensity of work feels palpable, but amid this dedication, many remain invisible, even when they are putting in more effort than others. This everyday scene reveals a disturbing truth: the dynamics of power and influence in today's workplace. Now, with that scenario in mind, let's discuss an important reality about what it really means to work hard and the emotional cost that many ignore. The chapter we're about to explore uncovers the hidden layers of the hypervigilance imposed on modern workers, a manipulation that subtly infiltrates our routines. For thinkers like Niccolò Machiavelli, power lies in how we shape and control our perceptions. He challenges us to question, does complete devotion to hard work guarantee recognition and success? What many of us consider a virtue may actually be a burden that keeps us chained to an oppressive routine. Constant effort without a strategy for perception can lead not only to exhaustion, but also to a state of emotional distrust and mental confusion. The result, an endless cycle of powerlessness and dissatisfaction. When we focus solely on effort and become lost in the need for approval, we become puppets in our own lives. True leadership and power go beyond hard work. They involve how we manipulate the image and narrative around us. Think about the emotional impact of seeing a colleague whose dedication seems less than yours, yet they end up getting recognized and promoted. That stings, doesn't it? This feeling of injustice is a direct manifestation of the distorted power dynamics in which we operate. But how can you break this exhausting cycle of work? The answer lies in transforming your approach. Instead of dissipating your energy in hours of dedication without a proper strategy, ask yourself, how can I enhance my impact without sacrificing my mental health? This may seem like a simple idea, but oftentimes it's the key to unlocking a new reality. This leads us to reflect on the subtle signs we're ignoring in our work environment. When you invest so much, you might start to lose sight of what really matters. What appears to be a trajectory towards success turns into an emotional maze where recognition is scarce. This truth is unsettling, but it's not the most disturbing aspect. Furthermore, what else might occur when we ignore these signs and continue down this lonely path? How might this affect not only our mental health, but also our relationships with those around us? These questions guide us to a deeper understanding of the consequences of effort without strategy. Thus, we can prepare to uncover what we truly do to reclaim that lost control. In our next session, we'll discuss practical techniques for changing this dynamic. What are you willing to do to ensure your efforts are not in vain? That is the question that will take us forward. What if everything you understood about effort and success is a carefully disguised trap? This inquiry resonates deeply with the work of Niccolò Machiavelli, urging us to reevaluate the nature of power and the invisible manipulation that permeates our lives. The truth is that there exists a shadowy space where hard work, often glorified, can become a burden, pushing us into a cycle of powerlessness. Today, I'll show you how to recognize this trap and develop a practical protocol for reclaiming personal autonomy. In the mystery revealed by Machiavelli's work, the essence of control lies in perception. The culture of hard work can create the illusion that effort leads to recognition, but the reality often distorts this belief. The true dynamics of power do not focus on the hours dedicated, but on how we manipulate image and perception to our advantage. Those who work tirelessly often find themselves in vulnerable positions, while those who master the art of perception enjoy the rewards. This painful contradiction is a call for urgent and decisive action. So, how can you free yourself from this oppressive mechanism? The answer lies in a protocol that can transform your approach to control and effectiveness. The first step is to observe attentively and critically the environment around you. You need to identify the manipulative patterns. When you take this time for reflection, you start to discern the dynamics that influence your space. Often, we are so caught up in the day-to-day grind that we overlook these indicators. Imagine how it would feel to finally recognize the power dynamics within your team. Who really makes the decisions? Who is actually heard in meetings? From there, create a space of silence. This could be a 5 to 10 minute break in your day. Use that time to reflect on your interactions and the behaviors of others. Silence is a powerful antidote to information overload. When you take a moment of silence, you can observe better and think clearly. Then you move on to the third step, enhancing your presence. This involves acting strategically. Engage in conversations and interject at the right moments, bringing your perspective in a compelling way. When you position yourself as an essential element in a dialogue, you automatically alter how others perceive you. This doesn't mean being manipulative. It means being aware of the impact you can have through your interactions. But be cautious, because this journey is not without risks. Ignoring control over your own perception can lead to growing vulnerability. Working hard without a strategy is a recipe for continuous exhaustion. Therefore, instead of just working more, adopt this new approach to maximize your impact. How can you not only gain recognition, but also become someone who is inseparable from the group's success? This practice can change not only your professional dynamics, but will also reverberate in your personal relationships. Think of all the facets of your life that could benefit from this newfound control over perceptions. What if you could turn each interaction into a new opportunity for influence, claiming your space and voice without sacrificing your peace of mind? As we advance in this understanding, we encounter a crucial question. How far are you willing to go to change the narrative in your life? How can you distance yourself from the compulsion for hard work in pursuit of true power based on perception? In a world where discoveries become liberating, let's keep exploring together. How can you position yourself to challenge established norms and rewrite your own story? Imagine yourself in a meeting room, surrounded by colleagues discussing innovation, results, and commitment. And amid this competitive atmosphere, you wonder, why isn't my constant effort recognized? This feeling of invisibility, even after dedicating hours to your work, may stem from something much deeper. What is really happening when hard work doesn't translate into power and success? Collective consequences, the effect of hard work. Today, we will explore how hard work becomes a collective force that impacts families and societies, perpetuating systems that control and subjugate. The idea that hard work leads to success is a deeply rooted belief passed down through generations, but does it truly empower us? Niccolò Machiavelli, in his analyses of power, offers a disturbing perspective. He suggests that true power is not just about individual effort, but about the ability to manipulate others' perceptions. What lies behind the relentless effort is the perpetuation of a cycle that often leads to emotional stagnation. By focusing solely on hard work, we overlook the reflection on whether this strategy will actually take us where we want to go. Have you ever stopped to think that this incessant constant belief in effort might be a trap. This ethos of working hard can not only shield our ability to transform society, but also place us in a position of vulnerability. While many are dedicated to their work, those who understand the dynamics of power may benefit from a strategy that's less exhausting but much more effective. Imagine a scenario where extreme dedication goes unrewarded. While a colleague who seems to have fewer pressures on their shoulders gets promoted, you feel desolate. This is not merely frustration, it's a clear sign that the struggle for recognition is tied to how you are perceived in the workplace and society at large. Instead of continuing this exhausting cycle, how about reconsidering your approach? How can you maximize your impact without sacrificing your mental health? Reflecting on the emotional cost of hard work is essential. By examining the relationships and power dynamics around you, you can find ways to cultivate more meaningful influence. When this dynamic of individuals gets lost in the collective effort, what remains are families that feel pressured and societies that don't progress. The belief that hard work pays off transforms into a continuous cycle of power scarcity, anxiety, and lack of control. The feeling of powerlessness in the face of your own efforts can even be contagious, affecting relationships at the expense of those who dedicate themselves the most. And what is the impact of this on a larger scale? By observing how this captivating belief in hard work affects the lives of dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of people around you, we can ask, what are we truly promoting in society? If we continue down the path of a culture that values only sacrifice and emotional strain, what values do we need to redefine as a collective? So instead of just walking down this road paved by hard work, start reflecting. How can you rewrite your own narrative about success and power? This question is especially important, as the answers may not only change your life, but also impact those around you. Now, the echoing question is, how can we free ourselves from this collective trap of believing in hard work? What do we need to consider to transform this scenario? This reflection is crucial and leads us to the necessary next steps in our quest for power and recognition. The feeling of impotence can sometimes come from the constant pressure to be productive, right? We have already realized that sensitivity and awareness of our surroundings are, in fact, powerful tools. This revelation will lead us to an impressive understanding. True influence comes from something beyond hard work. It's rooted in our ability to manipulate and understand the social dynamics around us. Niccolò Machiavelli challenges us to re-evaluate our beliefs about success. The idea that hard work is the only way to achieve recognition and power is a trap. He warns us that appearance and perception can often overshadow real effort. This is not just a subtle observation, it's a brutal truth about how society is structured. Many people who dedicate themselves intensely may end up being overlooked, while others, who know how to attract the attention of others, thrive. This reality becomes even more painful when it dawns on us that vulnerability can be a consequence of our own efforts. Why does this happen? Because blind dedication to work can make us lose sight of effective strategies for influence. Those who understand and apply this art of social control often achieve success without seeming like they broke a sweat. This opens the door to a new way of thinking. What can you do to amplify your impact without sacrificing your mental health? Let's explore how sensitivity is not a weakness, but a recognition of your social role. Imagine the possibility of breaking free from an exhausting cycle where every effort seems to yield no desired results and stepping into a new dynamic of interaction. When assessing how you are perceived, go beyond simple individual recognition. Ask yourself, how can you create a network of influence that highlights you without the need for endless hours of work? Sometimes the emotional pains of loneliness and insecurity can blind us. Working hard is not what brings effectiveness. It's the ability to position yourself strategically. And that's what Machiavelli teaches us. By changing your perception of power and control, you can open the door to a new way of living and interacting. To illustrate this, think of a situation you've experienced. You dedicated weeks to a project, poured all your energy into it, but your contribution was overshadowed by someone who hardly tried at all. This feeling of injustice is a symptom of something deeper at play, related to perception and influence. The lingering question is your commitment to work overshadowing your social control strategy? Hence, we arrive at a critical inquiry. To what extent is your dedication to hard work transforming into a shortcut to impotence? Reflecting on this can initiate a real transformation in your life. So how can you make this change so that not only your recognition, but also your social standing increases? Think about it. We are surrounded by colleagues, all focused on their tasks. However, the constant pressure and expectation for recognition can lead us to a state of exhaustion and anxiety. The beauty of what Machiavelli offers us lies in his clarity. The true battle takes place in the perceptions that shape our interactions. Now, there exists a strategic technique you can begin to apply. What makes this skill truly powerful, yet so little recognized? And how can you use it to shape your relationships more effectively? This will be the question we explore next. The feeling that your effort goes unrecognized can be distressing. This frustration is what leads many to question the dynamics between hard work and power. When we dedicate hours to what we believe is the right thing, we can find ourselves in a deep pit of discouragement. As often, the value of what we do is not measured by the sweat shed, but by our ability to navigate the complex power dynamics around us. When we look at Niccolò Machiavelli's ideas, we find a provocative re-evaluation of these certainties. He suggests that true power lies in the ability to control others' perceptions, not merely in the sum of hours worked. This concept prompts us to reflect: are we losing ourselves in a game we don't know how to play? Focusing solely on what seems to be an unshakable value can actually leave us vulnerable. In this context, what's at stake is our ability to position ourselves strategically. Imagine an office where a colleague who appears to do the bare minimum gets all the promotions. You wonder, why isn't my effort enough? The answer can be painful but revealing. They may be controlling perception and thus the narrative around them more effectively. For many, excessive dedication turns into a vicious cycle of anxiety and exhaustion. Hard work can become an invisible trap that feeds a culture of dissatisfaction and distrust. This reality can foster feelings of helplessness. What if instead of just working hard, you could use your energy more efficiently, leveraging perception to your advantage? The key lies in learning to read the social environment and trading effort in hours worked for an investment in your presence and impact. But how does this exchange happen? How can you maximize your effect without succumbing to fatigue and frustration? Start observing your interactions. Make yourself strategically visible, becoming an essential agent in conversations. This transformation doesn't have to be radical. Every small step can have a big impact. Now you might be wondering, does this really make a difference? And the answer is a resounding yes. When you start acting more consciously and strategically, the way others perceive your value also begins to change. So how can you apply this in your daily life? How can you turn these new perspectives into actions that ensure your efforts lead to recognition and satisfaction? These questions are pivotal in paving the way for reclaiming the control you've lost over your interactions and the recognition you deserve. Before we continue on this journey of self-discovery, here's an essential question. How much of your effort is truly visible to others? How might this affect your relationships? From these reflections, it becomes clear that power isn't just about lifting more weight. It's about knowing how and when to lift it.